Good evening, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, by way of introduction, my name is Gabriela Gonzalez. I'm the Mid-Beach Neighborhood Affairs Coordinator. I'd like to thank everyone for being here on tonight's call to discuss the Mooring Field Management Plan, some of the latest conceptual drawings, and of course, provide project updates on this project. I want to recognize a few of our elected officials that have already joined us this evening. Thank you to Commissioner Magazine's aide, Luis Atencio, Commissioner Dominguez as well for being on the call, as well as County Commissioner Eileen Higgins and her aide, Daniel Reyes. I'd like to as well recognize some of the staff members that will be assisting us with tonight's presentation. We have from our Office of Capital Improvement Projects, our CIP Director, David Martinez. From Environment and Sustainability, we have our Assistant Director, Lindsay Preck. From Property Management, we have our Facility Management Division Director, Francisco Garcia. And then on the consultant side of our project team, we have Nadia Locke, who's with Resource Environmental Solutions, and our engineering consultant from Moffat and Nickel, we have Manuel Garcia. So I'm going to turn it over to Nadia for the presentation and just to walk us through what we have for this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gabby, and good evening, everyone. We want to thank you all for attending this webinar and your interest in staying informed in the city's efforts to establish a mooring field. My name is Nadia Locke, and many of you have already seen me present on this project a few times, but also with me, I'm happy to introduce the other members of our consultant team who are on, Manuel Castano and Tim Blankenship of Moffat and Nickel, who have been engaged in this process since the beginning. We're also joined by other scientists from Resource Environmental Solutions, RES, Gail Stone and Mark Clark. Next slide, please. So this is our agenda. First, we're going to outline the objectives of tonight and the webinar. Next, I'm going to go back and I'm going to address some of the historical context that has brought us here today. And how the city came to decide to explore the possibility of establishing a mooring field, and a brief overview of what the city has accomplished since the onset of that undertaking. Then we're going to provide you with an update on what we're working on now, along with the next steps, and of course, how long the process will take. Finally, we'll let you know how you can stay informed and continue to provide your input and get answers to your questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's get started. So these are the meeting objectives, but our main objective here is to update you on what we've been doing since the last meeting. We're here tonight because the city has advanced the project to a point where we need your input again. While that is the main objective, we also want to provide you with the background on how we got there to this point. And this will include discussing the reason why a community would want a mooring field, describing some of the benefits, providing some background and context on the historical activities conducted, showing you the proposed layout and the engineering decisions. Manuel will go through the engineering decisions that were made to shape where we are. To talk about the management approach that we want you all to weigh in on. And of course, we want you to understand what the next steps are for the project. Next slide, please. So this table presents several concerns that were initially raised that prompted the city to consider a mooring field and to look into how to establish a mooring field and what concerns that it could address. So I'd like to just remind everyone that without legally establishing a mooring field, the city does not have the authority to regulate vessels or the behaviors of vessel operators. And having the mooring field allows Marine Patrol to enforce rules. Without it, they technically have no jurisdiction. So the first concern relates to the increase in anchorage in Sunset Harbor. We did an analysis of historical area photographs and identified that there was a substantial increase in the number of vessels over time. And I'm sure you've all seen that yourselves firsthand. But having too many vessels in one area can create many of the other concerns listed here. A mooring field will establish a predetermined number of mooring sites based on a variety of factors that Manuel will discuss with you soon. There's also been a concern expressed about there being more derelict vessels simply by just having more vessels. There have been numerous incidents of abandoned boats coming loose and becoming a hazard. It's difficult and costly for Marine Patrol to retrieve those vessels. I've listed an abbreviated definition of derelict vessels in the table to remind everyone what a derelict vessel, that a derelict vessel has a legal definition by Florida statute. There are 3 situations that create a derelict vessel. They include wrecked, junked, or substantially dismantled boats in any waters of the state of Florida. A wrecked vessel is one that is sunken or sinking, aground without the ability to free itself without mechanical assistance, or is stuck after a marine casualty, such as a boating accident, extreme weather, or a fire. A junked vessel is one that has been substantially stripped of its components, or if the vessel components have substantially degraded or been destroyed, or if the vessel has been discarded by the owner or operator. A vessel is substantially dismantled if at least 2 of the following 3 are missing: compromised, incomplete, or inoperable. The steering system, the propulsion system, or the exterior hull integrity. A vessel may also be derelict if it's located in any port in Florida without having the consent of the agency with jurisdiction, or if it's docked, grounded, or breached at a property of another without the consent of that property owner. The formal definition can be found on Florida Fish and Wildlife's website at myfwc.com. Environmental concerns have also been identified as important reasons for a mooring field. Vessels can have impacts on water quality through releases of sewage and pollution, as well as dropping anchors on seagrasses or dragging an anchor over seagrass beds. The environmental agencies require that the city provide services to boaters to dispose of sewage and prohibit anchoring within an area defined as a mooring field to address some of these concerns. As far as the impacts to this direct impacts to the seagrass, vessels will moor to stationary buoys instead of using anchors. Manuel will go through that a little bit later when he talks about the engineering design. The city has identified quite a bit of submerged debris in Sunset Harbor and in that area of the mooring field. This debris will be removed as part of the mooring field, and it'll provide an opportunity for increased seagrass growth in areas that are otherwise precluded from having the ability to grow seagrass. These environmental benefits are a large reason for public support in mooring fields. There have also been concerns expressed over noise and other impactful behaviors coming from anchored vessels. Again, without a mooring field, there are no rules that the Marine Patrol can enforce because the city has no jurisdiction. But once the mooring field is established, there will be a few ways that the city will be able to address nuisance concerns. There will be a management plan in place that will be approved by the regulatory agencies, and it will outline requirements and some restrictions. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But the other management tool is that each of the users of the mooring field will enter into an agreement prior to being able to moor. These rules will be in place to protect the public and help to address potential safety concerns, which is in the next row. There are navigation concerns that the mooring field can address. Manuel will discuss the layout and how he carefully considered boat movement and signage to improve navigation in this area. I mentioned earlier about the derelict vessels. One of the challenges that the city has is that once a vessel sinks or becomes loose with today's situation, and if there's no one on the boat, it can be a challenge to find and contact an owner to resolve the problem. This will be addressed through having the users register and comply with the evacuation requirements based on severe storms. I'd also like to mention that the agencies do require that anchor assemblies are regularly inspected to ensure their integrity is not compromised, and this will help improve the issue with vessels coming loose. Next slide. So this is a busy slide, but it shows the process and the good work that the city has done to get the project to this point. So I'm not going to go through each step here because I am going to discuss them in the future slides, but I believe that it demonstrates that there's a lot of good work that's going into establishing a mooring field. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'm going to take a step back to 2020 when we did this initial analysis for the city. This is a list of the items we accomplished as part of the initial study. First, we assessed the needs and benefits of the mooring field. I already spoke to you about those items prompting the city to consider the mooring field. But we also outlined the regulatory and permitting agency requirements. And this graphic to the right is from the analysis where we explored the physical extents of where the mooring field could physically be located. The city initially considered the phase 1 portion on the left of the graphic to be the location of the mooring field. But as the study evolved, we expanded the evaluation to these other areas to consider. Several potential layouts were developed using a variety of vessel sizes and phasing considerations. We looked into options for a variety of facilities and ways for the city to manage the mooring field. We met with the public and presented the findings of this preliminary analysis. Then we refined the analysis and published the document. If you go onto the city's project website, you can access the full document for details. Next slide. This next step involved a more directed review and analysis of items needed for the city to define the mooring field parameters. So this was in 2002. It started with meetings with the public again to seek additional input, city staff, and multiple departments to identify, some very specific needs of the city. We also met with regulatory agencies to get their input and get some lessons learned from those agencies and get their input on some of the items that were important to them. We reviewed other projects in the area that had leases or were pursuing permits, such as private docks that would preclude us from having a mooring field in those areas and make sure we were avoiding any conflicts. We sought input from the agencies. We garnered a lot of their wisdom. And then we developed an opinion of probable costs for different scenarios to help the city and make informed decisions. This more focused effort resulted in the city making some critical decisions. First, the city determined that permitting the entire area at one time was most beneficial. The city determined that up to 200 moorings within the area would be appropriate. The city decided that it would hire an outside company to manage the mooring field rather than use city staff in this capacity. The city identified funding gaps and ways to pursue additional funding for the project. The city determined that they could construct the mooring field in phases based on initial and future demands. And finally, the city took a look into pursuing anchoring limitation areas outside of the mooring field to complement the mooring field. And we'll talk a little bit about anchoring limitation areas, or ALAs, soon. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide describes what we've been working on since the city made those critical decisions. The city started the process of pursuing anchoring limitation areas, as I just mentioned, and they issued a task work order for us to continue the project through design and permitting. We conducted several surveys, including seagrass surveys, submerged debris surveys. The seagrass surveys used to locate so that we can place and locate anchors in places that'll help us to avoid impacts to seagrasses. Submerged debris, well, we identified over 150 pieces of debris in the area, including some sunken vessels. The hydrographic survey conducted, what that is, it shows us the depths and contours of the entire area. And that's used for us to ensure that there will be enough clearance between the bottom of the vessels and the bottom of the ground so that we're protecting any seagrasses or other resources on the bottom. Geotechnical surveys were conducted to make sure that we design the anchors in such a way that they'll withstand the forces of storms and wave actions with the boats moored to them. Utility surveys were necessary to ensure that we do not install anchors in an area where there are utility lines. So that was also conducted. City departments met several times collectively to ensure that decisions impacting different departments were well coordinated and that each department had the option to weigh in. Of course, we needed to have Marine Patrol input. Sergeant Resende and Lieutenant Rodriguez and others provided tremendously valuable input and support in this process as well. Neighborhood Affairs created a project webpage for this project, updated some of the frequently asked questions that were developed from previous public input, and posted some of our documents for you to access and review. We had a workshop where we drafted a management plan that's required in order for us to get for the state to issue a permit. And Manuel and his team created an updated layout, which he will be presenting to you next. And with that, I'd love for Manuel to take the reins.
Thanks, Nadia. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, terrific. So the mooring field that we're looking at, as Nadia said, includes a number of different areas that we're seeing here, color-coded in red, blue, and yellow. The total number of anchors that we're currently showing is in the order of 150, so 50 per area. I think it's actually 147, but anyway, so around 150 anchors for vessels in the 30, 40, 50, and 60 feet range. That being said, and just as a data point, we reviewed some of the latest aerial imagery, and I believe it was February of this year that we were able to pull the latest aerial imagery that shows that currently there is in the order of 133, 130 boats essentially using that area. So this 147 would not really be a big increase, but it would be done on a much larger area. So that would definitely decrease the density of boats that would be using this area. Now, that being said, there's a couple of elements that we consider from an engineering standpoint when laying out these type of facilities. And the first thing we usually look at is the slip mix for the facility. Slip mix needs essentially to provide a boat test distribution that is aligned with what the market demands to achieve higher rates of occupancy. So what we did, we looked at all marinas within Miami-Dade County, public and private marinas, and we essentially looked at the size of slips and the size of anchors that they provide. And that allows us to see the type of boating population that would be potentially using this facility. So that being said, we saw that approximately 30% of the slips and anchors provided in the market are for vessels in the 40-foot range, and there's another 30% of the slips and anchors that are offered for vessels in the 50-foot range. So we essentially used those percentages for the 40 and the 50-foot anchors. But that being said, the city and the design team are well aware of the scarcity of affordable docking options, particularly for smaller boats. This is a phenomenon that we've seen in a lot of metro areas in the US where, and I think everyone in this call has seen how some of the existing marinas in the market tend to reconfigure their layouts to cater larger boats, which reduces the supply of slips for the smaller vessels. So in order to try to maintain affordability of docking for the smaller vessels, the proposed slip mix that we're showing here includes approximately another 30% of anchors for these vessels under 30 foot in length, as opposed to, I think it's the 11-12% that the market currently offers. So again, 30, 40, and 50 foot boats, each of them at 30%, the total number of anchors. And then for vessels in the 60-foot range, we're only providing around 10% of the total number of anchors. The next thing we look at is the setback from the waterfront properties, which in this case, it's a distance from the shoreline to the, I guess, the limits of the mooring field, which was established at around 185 feet. So again, it's 185 feet from the shoreline at Belle Isle and also the shoreline from the properties along West Avenue. And the reasoning for this is we're trying to maintain riparian rights and not to limit future potential development or expansion of any docking structures that these waterfront property owners may intend to do in the next years. And this similar setback of 185 feet was established along Maurice Gibb Memorial Park and the south dock of Sunset Harbor Yacht Club to allow easy access of crafts to these two facilities. The next element that we consider were navigation fairways, which can be seen essentially between the red shaded area and the blue shaded area, and then the blue and the yellow. Those are interior channels that were included to allow easy access, not only from mooring field users, but also from waterfront property owners that may have a boat. And essentially, this allows them to get into Meloy Channel fairly quickly without having to go all the way north to Belle Isle or south to MacArthur Causeway. So again, 100-foot wide interior channel or fairway. And this was designed to allow safe two-way navigation of vessels up to 75, 80 feet in length. Larger vessels can definitely use these channels in terms of width. It's just that it may not be a two-way, but just a single-way or one-way navigation. But we don't think this will happen with really large vessels because, as we'll discuss in a minute, water depths are relatively shallow. So vessels in the 120, 150 are not expected to, again, be using these interior channels. The next thing that we looked at, which Nadia has talked about a little bit, were water depths. So we got a bathymetric survey, and the size of the circles and the size of the boats that are going to be using those anchors considers these water depths. And we're using a 2 feet under keel clearance, so between the bottom of the boat to the seabed, to protect boats when there's some type of motions due to maybe some minor swell that you may get in Biscayne Bay, but also to protect some of the marine resources that you may have. In terms of marine resources, as Nadia commented, we also got a benthic resources survey, and the layout for this facility considers the presence of those seagrass patches, and particularly the design team decided to not including any type of anchoring or even the mooring circles in areas that would show the seagrass coverage over 30%. Last couple of things that I wanted to touch base on from an engineering standpoint is that we also looked at submerged and buried utilities. The design team has been coordinating with Florida Power and Light, City of Miami Beach, and then Florida Gas Transmission Company to make sure that the location of these helical anchors that I'll describe in a minute don't affect or don't impact any of these submerged utilities. And the last thing that Nadia also talked about briefly is that as part of this project, we're also including 2 aids to navigation to better delineate the limits of Meloy Channel north of Belle Isle, which we think this will increase navigation safety for users. Next slide. The last thing I wanted to talk about is another ecological component of the project that the design team is considering, and is the type of anchor system that we're currently considering. So on the left-hand side, we have the traditional system that has probably been used since the 50s or the 60s, that essentially consists on either a mushroom type or anchoring, or maybe just a block of concrete with a heavy chain and a light chain and then a buoy. And what we've seen in a lot of the projects is that that system, due to the motion, not only of the chain, but in some hurricane prone areas, the motion of the actual anchor, we've seen that system can potentially scar seagrasses and impede growth of these resources, as we're showing in 2 examples in the middle 2 images on this slide. What we're proposing is an eco-friendly or flexible system that consists of, instead of using a block of concrete, this is a helical anchor that it's drilled into the seabed. And on top of that, instead of providing a heavy and a light chain, we're providing a flexible system that is neutrally buoyant, so it's not going to sink and it's not going to drag. That is, it's essentially an elastic rod that is engaged when you have high water events or when you have minor swells. So with that, I'll pass it on to Nadia. I think you're on mute, Nadia.
Am I unmuted now? I think I am. Okay.
No, not anymore.
No? Okay. All right. Just a minute. Okay. All right. I'm with you now. All right. So in 2021, the state passed a law and established the process for creating anchoring limitation areas. So we've talked about this a little bit. This is something that the city is interested in pursuing. So anchoring limitation areas are typically in urban areas that have residential docking facilities and significant recreational boat traffic. A county's defined and approved anchoring limitation area establishes that a person may not anchor a vessel for more than 45 consecutive days in any 6-month period. So in response to concerns raised about vessels moving to areas outside of the mooring field and anchoring outside of the mooring field, the city decided to pursue possible anchoring limitation areas in conjunction with the mooring field. City staff has met with the county to express this intention and also created a resolution that it would establish ALAs for residential islands in the vicinity of the mooring field. Those include Sunset Islands, Star Island, Palm Island, and Hibiscus Island. Establishing ALAs is on the city's legislative agenda for the state. The city committed in that resolution that mooring field operations will not commence unless and until these anchoring limitation areas are established according to Florida statutes. Okay, next slide, please. All right, management. So in order for the mooring field to realize its full benefits, it needs to be properly managed. As mentioned earlier, one of the city's decisions is to hire an outside mooring field management company. The city developed a draft management plan as is required by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Essentially, this management plan establishes the rules of the mooring field. The city used the state's template as a starting point to make sure that we included everything that is required by the agency, but also tailored it in reference to reference relevant ordinances and to incorporate suggestions from the public and in particular the Marine Waterfront Protection Authority letter to commission. The city referenced other similar municipal management plans for other mooring fields to help create some of the criteria. The mooring field management plan was drafted with several departments' input so that it would provide the necessary information from several perspectives. We encourage you all to access the draft management plan. It's on the project website and provide your input. The users of the mooring field will enter an agreement that will ensure that they know and comply with the rules of the mooring field, and so that the mooring field management company has contact information for the vessel in case something is needed. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're on to the next steps. So at this time, we're looking for input on the draft management plan and the conceptual layout that Manuel showed. But again, those are posted to the website, to the project website, and we are looking for you guys to read them, digest them, and give us some input. We are in the process of scheduling formal pre-application meetings with each of the environmental regulatory agencies. After our comment period for the public and after receiving input from the environmental agencies, we're going to move forward with the design and permit applications. We anticipate submitting these applications in May. But concurrent with the permit processing, the city will adopt an ordinance needed to have a mooring field. A user agreement will be developed, and the city will enter into a submerged land lease with the state of Florida, who owns the bottom, for the area of the mooring field. And it's the submerged lands lease is needed in order to obtain the state permit. The city will hold 2 separate competitive bidding processes, one for a mooring field management company and one for a contractor to construct the mooring field. And then, while all that's going on, we're going to be working hard to obtain those permits. So the last slide that I'm presenting is the timeline for the next steps that I just talked about. So I think that's what you guys want to know is when will that mooring field be in place, right? So the major milestones really are for obtaining the permits, which we anticipate to happen in fall of 2025, with construction right after in the winter of 2025, so that we can start the operation of the mooring field in early 2026. This timeline is also posted to the project website, so feel free to take a look and give us your input. Next slide, please. So with this, I will turn it back over to Gabby to let you know how you can stay informed. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nadia and Manuel, for the insightful presentation. I'd also like to recognize Commissioner Suarez for joining us as well this evening. Thank you for being here tonight. I know we covered a lot of information, and of course, like Nadia said, there are plenty of ways for you to stay connected. If you look at the slide here, to download a copy of the presentation that you just watched, to rewatch the meeting, to view the draft management plan, sign up to receive project updates, or provide all of the feedback within our 30-day comment period, which, by the way, ends March 21st. You can feel free to follow us on our website, and so you can check out all that information at miamibeachfl.gov/mooring-field. If you're joining us from a computer tonight and you have a cell phone on hand, you can also scan that QR code that is on the lower portion of your screen there, and it'll take you to the project page. Our contact information is up on the screen as well, so feel free to submit any questions that you might have. Please keep in mind that for this portion of the meeting that we're going to have now, which is our public comment session, which will be run by our Neighborhood Affairs Director, Kevin Polito, and I'll introduce him in just a second. This portion of the meeting, we will do our best to answer any of the comments that are presented to the project team. And again, just keep in mind, whatever we don't get a chance to go over, we will absolutely take back to the team. You can feel free to send those comments to us. We'll add them to our list of comments and questions that we get from all of you, and we'll make sure to further review them with the project team and provide answers after that 30-day comment period. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin, who will lead us through this next portion of the meeting.
Great. Thanks so much, Gabby. So as Gabby stated, my name is Kevin Polito. I'm the Neighborhood Affairs Director of the City of Miami Beach. So if you have any comments that you would like to submit and ask the team, please go ahead and click the raise your hand feature on Zoom. If you're calling in, it's *9. And if you're on a mobile device, go ahead and there's 3 dots. You click the 3 dots and then you'll see the raise your hand feature. So we're gonna ask that everyone keeps their questions or comments to just 2 minutes. I'm gonna have a timer up here, and we're gonna go to our first caller. I apologize if I mispronounce your name. If you could just please state your name. I see Jose Soler. Jose.
Hey, yes,
Hey,
Jose
Jose.
Soler.
Hey.
One thing was in the draw. We live at 9 Island, and then we have a marina. 11 Island, Costa Brava has a marina. In that design, you guys didn't build or draw out a channel for us to be able to get to our marina between the red section and the section that goes parallel to West Ave. And so if there's a possibility for you guys to carve out a section there. And then I didn't hear the Malloy Channel. Are you guys going to make that a no wake zone?
All right, thanks, Jose. That's great feedback in respect to really accessing your channel there. And then in respect to the no wake zone, we have Lindsay Pretch. Lindsay, do you have additional information that you could share? I know that's probably something that would go through the state, but I'll turn over to the team to see if they have any additional information on that becoming a no wake zone at this time.
Hi, Kevin. So I'd actually like Marine Patrol also to opine on the current designation of Malloy Channel. There may be a speed zone in place for at least part of the year, including manatee season. And typically FWC has comments on those speed zones.
Great. And real quick, because we have a lot of people with their hands up, I'll just jump over to our Marine Patrol group, either Lieutenant Rodriguez or Sergeant Rosende.
Sergeant Rosende here. How
Hey,
are you?
Sergeant.
Good. Malloy Channel in the area of the mooring field is open 30 mile an hour all year round.
Great. Thank you, sir. So I'm going to go next to Sarah de los Reyes. Sarah?
Hi. Hi, Kevin. How you doing?
Hey, how's
Thank
it
you.
going?
I have a question in regards to Sunset Harbor. There's an area there that is red. How many boats are they going to put in that area of Sunset Harbor in front of the park? Since we're going to have the taxi, we have the paddle boarders, the kayaks, we have the Marine Patrol, we're going to have the fire department boats there. Oh, and the launching of boats in Sunset Harbor. How many boats are going to be there? Because right now there's a lot of them.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that question, Sarah. I'm going to turn it over to the team. I think that is ultimately going to be more of a design question, but let me see if our consultant could help and just explain how that would work.
I can address that one if you want.
Sure.
Thanks for your question, Sarah. So yes, so we know that that's an area that traditionally has had a lot of presence of boats. Our current layout shows, I believe it's 10 to 11 boats on the area northeast of Belle Isle and west of Maurice Gibb Memorial Park. So 10 to 11 over there.
Thanks so much, Manuel. And I'm going to go next to caller Andy. If you could just state your full name for us. Hey there, Andy.
Hi, my name is Andrew Dively. I'm here representing the Miami Beach Boaters Association. I'd just like to offer some feedback on the proposal. We have many people currently living out there on the bay, and I think we need to consider the human aspect of this issue. Some of the things that I think we need to take into consideration with the commissioners and this team who's working on this is how this is going to affect the people living out there. I think that the permitting process should be done in phases to ensure that the folks anchoring out there can transition to the mooring field if they desire and they don't become displaced. I believe that we need to focus on having affordable spots for those residents and also ensuring that we take into consideration the feedback from the boaters community and we make sure that we're working with the community out there because these issues really matter. And we also just want to keep in mind that the boaters have not been part of this discussion. We would love to have a follow-up discussion with you to make sure that we also have access via dinghy docks, 24-hour access, and that liveaboards are going to be allowed so that folks can live peacefully and legally on the water. And we want to make sure that for boats that are anchoring out there, that they may be able to access the dinghy dock if it has a fee or something. But we want to see this area cleaned up just as much as everybody else does. We are legal residents and voters and taxpayers of the city of Miami Beach. And there are more than 100 people living out there. So I think they should absolutely be a part of this discussion and that their thoughts and their concerns should be taken into consideration.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy, for that feedback. And that's a great reminder in the sense that I muted myself. Sorry, that's a great reminder in the sense that we do have an open comment forum, and I encourage everybody, and if you have any neighbors that are interested as well, that 30-day comment period will start today and it should run through March 28th at 5 p.m. So please, we'll put the slide back up at the end of the presentation. We're asking for everybody to submit comments in respect to the management plan, and that way our team could evaluate and make sure to respond as needed. I'm going to go next to Terry Beanstalk. Terry?
Yes, thank you. I represent Sunset Island 3 and 4 Property Owners Association. We've been involved in this process for a couple of years now. What I'm not hearing is any discussion about the ALAs or the protection of the islands, which is a prerequisite, as stated in one of the slides, and based on the resolution of the city, a prerequisite for operation of this mooring field. Because it's a prerequisite for the operation of the mooring field. Seems to me that should be discussed first and foremost. Where are we with the county? Where are we with the state? And what happens if neither come through and ALAs are not established? Does this process stop?
Thank you, Mr. Beanstalk. And I will turn it over to our environmental team that's on the call. We did have a slide that just gave a general overview on the ALAs, but I'll turn it over to Lindsay if you could give us maybe a more in-depth update. And then also, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, in respect to the resolution that was passed, one can't proceed without the other. But Lindsay?
Good evening. Yes, we have been in contact with Miami-Dade County regarding the anchoring limitation areas. The DERM study that went before the Board of County Commissioners was approved for 2 pilot locations at the December County Commission meeting. Since then, that study and how to implement ALAs has been in review with the county attorney's office. So we are working in conjunction with DERM once it's out of review with the county attorney's office. So we will know more at that time, but we are working concurrently. As you know, Mr. Beanstalk, the resolution states that the operation of the mooring field cannot commence without the ALAs. So design and permitting is continuing, but it would not be operational until an ALA is established.
Thank you so much. And just to correct myself, I had stated the comment period is through March 28th. It's actually March 21st, 30 days from today. So going next to Mark Cooper. Hey there, Mr. Cooper.
There wasn't much said about upland facilities. I understand that under the some of the state requirements, there's a minimum specified for what needs to be upland. Where is it going to go? What's it going to look like? Has that been worked out?
Thank you for your question. And I'll turn it over. Nadia, maybe you could help us with that, or Maria Serna, because this is all part of a process, and we're pretty early on this process. So that could be why some of those questions might not have been answered. But Maria?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. Maria Serna, CIP, and the upland facilities will be included in the request for proposals that we are going to be advertising for the selection of a management company of the mooring field. So that will be included in the selection of the management company.
And just to clarify, Maria, as that's included, that would eventually dictate their potential location and where they could go.
That is correct, Kevin.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go to Wally Morin. Wally, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. You could state your name for us.
My name is Wally Moran. You got it correct. I'm the president of the Cruisers' Rights Network of North America. It's a boating advocacy group. I'd like to state in advance that the answers to my questions and all of this will be forwarded to the Vice President for Governmental Affairs for Boat US. It has over 800,000 members, and nearly 25% of those are in Florida. That being said, I'm not a representative for them. However, they are concerned with what's going on in Miami. Now, as you're aware, Senate Bill 192 is currently in front of the Florida legislature, and it will create an anchoring restriction area in which no overnight anchoring will be permitted within 200 yards of the Miami Beach shoreline, effective July the 1st. Since the mooring field will not be ready by that time, and presuming that this bill passes into law, where will these 150 plus anchored boats go? Are there any plans for these vessels? And I think that's a question that some of the city commissioners need to address. And I'd like to hear an answer from them. Is this committee aware? I just did a recent phone survey on this. There are fewer than 10 transient slips available in the Miami Beach, Miami area, and there are no long-term liveaboard slips available as of 2 weeks ago. In effect, there is no place at all for these boats to go. And I'd like to know what the committee has to say regarding that. Now, in addition to that, if these boats are to be forced from where they're anchored, and that appears to be what's going to happen, and out of Miami Beach, I want to assure this committee and the city commissioners specifically, I'm going to advise every municipality within 50 miles of what Miami Beach is doing and that these communities can expect to find more boats in their waters as a result of Miami Beach's treatment of these vessels. These people are human beings, despite what certain commissioners seem to think of them. These people are entitled to some security in living. They have jobs in town. They have family in town. These people need to be able to live where they are until this mooring field is completed. And if the city's plan is to use Senate Bill 192 to evict them, to move them out, that's not acceptable. And you will get no cooperation from my organization, and you will certainly not get it from others. Now, what does the committee have to say?
Thank you, Mr. Morin, and I appreciate you taking the time to share those comments with us. Just to clarify, tonight is a public meeting in respect to the proposed mooring field that is proposed by the city of Miami Beach. And just quickly, there is a city resolution which states, I'm not aware personally of the anchoring limitations that you referenced at the state level, but we do have a city commission resolution in respect to county ALAs, which was the previous question before. What you could do is at the end of this call, we're going to have the information. Our emails are on there. We do have a city commission meeting tomorrow as well, and that information is available on our website. But in respect to today, we're just going to focus on the proposed mooring field and respect to any questions or comments related to that. And again, I do encourage everybody on the call, please submit any comments or questions that you have about the mooring field, the management plan, the draft management plan, what you want to see, what you don't want to see, into our comment period that's open for the next 30 days. I'm going to go to Isaiah Mosley. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Oh, that's okay. Hello, this is Isaiah Mosley. I got a few things I'd like to add. One, I like how they say the bottom is owned by the state when it's actually owned by the people of the state and managed by the state. Another thing, they say that they didn't find seagrasses greater than 30%. That's false. I know of zone 2 or 3 or whatever it was halfway down that's in greater than 30% seagrass coverage. Another thing, you want to turn this place into the mooring field down by the Keys, down near Key West, where everyone just dumps that sewage. Are you planning on charging for these slips for people to moor here? One more thing, you've got one of your zones going directly over a gas pipeline. These engineered plans aren't even done yet. So I guess some of the main things I want to know is, are you going to lease the individual locations or the entire zones outlined? And I guess that's, and will you be charging for this? If you could please.
Thank you, sir. So again, since we're a bit early on in this process, you're exactly, you are correct that the engineer plans are not final, and they're not designed yet, frankly. So if there's whatever utilities are underwater, those have not been accounted for at this time. So I'm going to ask Maria or Nadia if you could just assist in respect to the question about the charge. Ultimately, that's what we're here for, is to get feedback in this 30-day comment period about do the residents want to see a charge? Please submit comments, what that could look like. And the upland facilities, you mentioned a sewer pump out and whatnot. I'll turn it over to Nadia to maybe touch on anything I missed, but that's really the purpose of today's meeting, where we're so early on. We're looking for feedback on what to incorporate and what not to incorporate. Nadia?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to address a couple of things that were said. So one, with respect to the seagrass, we did do the seagrass surveys during seagrass growing season. We did identify seagrass, you're correct, over 30% density. We're working to try to avoid impacting those. And prior to construction, another seagrass survey will be done. So it will be updated prior to the construction. Also, with respect to the utilities, you're correct. There are Florida Power and Light lines, and you mentioned the gas utilities. We are aware. So some of those will be shifting when we get confirmation from the utilities of the exact locations. With respect to what's going to be charged, that has not been determined yet.
Thank you, Nadia. And now, before we get back into some of the questions. Just friendly reminder, if you have a question, raise your hand via Zoom so that way we can recognize you. I do want to recognize we have Tatiana Trofino, who is from District of Mickey Steinberg, excuse me, or County Commissioner Mickey Steinberg. So I'm going to go next to Nelson's iPad. If you could say your full name, Nelson.
Hi, Nelson Gonzalez. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I live on Revo Alto Island. And as you may know, the winds usually come from the southeast, and all along West Avenue, there are these, I don't know if you want to call them derelict boats or not, but two of them have come loose in the last, I think in December, we had a pretty bad storm for about 7 to 10 days, very, very windy. And one sailboat got loose, hit my dock and my neighbor's dock and my boat to the tune of over $10,000 worth of damage to the boat, which was up on a lift. And back in October as well, another sailboat got loose and ended up on my neighbor's dock. No major damage to the dock, but this is twice in about 2 or 3 months period of time that they got loose. What happens to those helical moorings during storms? Are those boats going to be moved? What's going to happen during, God forbid, a hurricane? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalez. I'm going to turn it over. Nadia, I guess that ultimately, would that be something that would be dictated in this draft plan?
It is addressed thank you, Kevin. Yes, it is addressed in the management plan. The evacuation procedures are outlined in the management plan. Feel free to take a look and provide your comments on that. Also, the permits do require that the anchors be inspected regularly to make sure that their integrity can withstand certain storms, even with boats attached. But the city is addressing evacuation and procedures through the management plan. And also, one of the benefits of the mooring field is that in the event that something does happen, we will know whose boats they are. We'll be able to contact folks if they have left their boats. We'll still have contact information for them.
Thank you. And again, that draft management plan at the end will have the website back up. If you quit before then, it is miamibeachfl.gov/mooring-field. And then you click on project materials, you'll see the timeline, the drawings, and the draft management plan. Next up, John. John, if you could say your full name for us. Let me pull up my timer here.
Yes, this is John Higgins. I'm actually a captain at Sunset Harbor of one of the private yachts, and also a boat owner myself. And I'm also a volunteer with Surfrider and take water samples. One of my concerns is the lack of ease of pump out facilities in Miami and Miami Beach. I've moored my boat in Nantucket for a season or two in the past and paid for a mooring gladly for the nice facilities, but included in the mooring field was in your annual fee was or your monthly fee was the ease to pump out, where you could pull your vessel up. I would encourage you strongly to make it easier for people to pump out. In Sunset Harbor, we can pump out in every single slip. You just call up and they come over and plug in. That was one of the requirements for Sunset Harbor, to have people living aboard in the marina. Right now, I have no idea how all the boats anchored off Sunset Harbor and Miami Beach get rid of their sewage. They probably dump it in the water. And I can tell you this, I monitor the water every week, and quite often our samples off Purdy Avenue, right at the kayak ramp there, are high levels of E. coli bacteria. So maybe you can comment on your plans for pump out facilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And again, that's one of the items that would be included in the draft management plan that is again online. There's a lot of different aspects that some people want to see. And that's really the purpose of today, is to introduce that to you all. We have it available online, and then we have that 30-day comment period. And again, the comments that are made today, we will also take that back with us. So like you said, you're from the Northeast or so, where you have established mooring fields. Well, this is our first one in Miami Beach. So that's why we're so early onto this process, where you see in other parts of the country, they have established processes. And if nobody else wants to jump in there, I'm going to go next to Joseph Salvage, I believe. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Joseph?
Thank you and good evening. This is Joseph Salzberg. I'm with the law firm of Gray Robinson. We have the honor of representing the Sunset Harbor Yacht Club in front of the city, the county, and in Tallahassee, where I am currently. No questions or comments. Just wanted to thank the city for meeting with us individually. I'm also joined on this call with our president of the Yacht Club, John Davis, and our general counsel, Raul Puig. Want to thank the city for being so gracious with their time and meeting with us apart from this, making sure there's public input. We look forward to being engaged very much so as stakeholders with regard to the anchoring limitation areas, the no wake zones, and definitely the mooring field. Look forward to continuing the conversation and being involved. And just want to thank the city for providing an open forum. We look forward to staying engaged at all levels of government going forward. I just want to let you know that we're all here and engaged. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you all participating in the process, and we please encourage you and your board to submit comments during that 30-day comment period. Again, if you haven't put your hand up, I encourage you, please put your hand up so we know how many people have not spoken. I do see next up the Miami Beach Boat Association. If you could state your name.
Yes, my name is Carlos Leon. I have two questions, okay? I know that the two marinas in Miami Beach are run by this Brian Redmond, okay? If he takes the administration of the mooring as well, he would have the monopoly of the whole Miami Beach marina. So I don't think he should have any part on bidding for this, first thing. The other thing is how much percentage, because the other day I was meeting with the mooring as well, and they said that the marina was over 20% that of chartering. Okay, so that's already 20% that they know of. I bet you it's 30 to 40% of boats there are chartering illegally. So I would want to know as well, what's the percentage of the chartering that they're gonna let. And the other thing is, I think they should let people that are here grandfathered in and pay the mooring field slip. If we're already here, we should have the opportunity to be first in line to sign up for a slip. Thank you.
Kevin, I think you're muted.
Yep, there we go. Thanks, Gabby. No, thank you, Mr. Leon. I appreciate you calling in. And I just want to confirm with our team so they could give some feedback in respect to commercial activity occurring in the mooring field that you referenced. Typically, for this kind of operation and for maybe what they've seen in other parts of the country, just want to confirm we typically wouldn't have commercial. And I know as part of this open comment period, that's some of the comments we would want to ensure that there are no commercial activities, charter activity occurring out of these moors. But Nadia, if you can maybe just opine on that.
Sure. So in the management plan, there is a commitment that, excuse me, commercial operations will not happen, will not be run out of the mooring field.
Great. And so in respect to, again, that draft management plan is already online. So in respect to commercial operations, charters, that will not be run out of the mooring field. In respect to your comment about those that should be grandfathered in, that's something, we will know, and please share comments. If it's something that could be incorporated in the management plan, that would be great. I'm gonna go next to Carla. If you could say your full name for us, Carla. Sorry, Carla, you're muted. And it's gonna ask you to unmute. All right, as you figure that out, I'm gonna go next and we'll come back to you. Mika, if you could say your full name for us, Mika.
Hi, yes, Micah Plummer.
Hey there.
Hi, how's it going? Yeah, I wanted to address some concerns as well. That was a great comment about the illegal activities happening right here in the marinas that, obviously it's not allowed, but people will break the law no matter where you are. So with how easy it is to go dock by dock and enforce illegal charter activities, and the lack of enforcement on that, how could you possibly inspect and stop that from happening when it's hundreds of feet away from any land or law enforcement agencies that can go out and check that stuff? That just doesn't seem realistic. I just don't understand why the taxpayers would spend millions of dollars and lose money every single year with this thing to replace their view of a couple boats with more boats, bigger boats, louder boats doing illegal stuff, and the same people that are already here. It just doesn't make sense to spend taxes unwisely like this, which I know it's going to happen if it's going to happen, but I just would like to see concerns about, addressing anything like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. So let me see if Carla, if you were able to unmute there. Carla, let's see. Try you one more time.
Okay, that should work.
It almost works. We hear you, but it's a bit there's a little bit of a fuzziness there, Carla.
Yeah. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I live at 9 Island.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
You hear me now?
Yep, perfect.
All right. Great. Sorry. I live at 9 Island, and our marina, and I'm pretty sure all the other marinas, require the boats to have insurance. Will the boats on the mooring slips be required to have insurance?
Thanks, Carla. So in respect, that's part of the draft management plan that's online. And I'm going to ask Nadia, do you have that already included in respect to insurance, and how would that work? Is that something that would be dictated by the process?
So that's actually going to be addressed by the user agreement. So the user agreement will be drafted. It'll be an agreement that outlines all the rules as far as things like what the insurance requirements will be. And that's where that is. So you're not going to see it in the management plan. So, but it will be addressed in the agreement.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So with that, I'm going to ask, I don't see anyone else that has not spoken, excuse me. Gabby, if you could go ahead and bring up the slide to make sure we have our contact information available. So that way, if you have any more questions, again, we have this 30-day comment period. We have the draft management plan available. Tonight's meeting was recorded. We will send out an email that says in case you missed it with this recording, with the presentation. So all of that is going to be available online on that website, which is miamibeachfl.gov/mooring-field. Again, we ask you to submit your comments within 30 days. That's going to end on March 21st, 2024. Our emails are here. If there's a question that you won't need to follow up on, you can email me at kevinpolito@miamibeachfl.gov or Gabby Gonzalez, and that's Gabby Gonzalez at miamibeachfl.gov. So I thank everybody for your time this evening. We look forward to continuing the discussion. Have a great night.